All right, so right now we're doing a test with both audio and also focus tracking. So I'm about 2 feet away from the cameras. We're gonna slowly back up and see how the audio sounds. Can it continue to hear me? And can you pick up my voice all the way back here? And then kind of, was it able to track my face that whole way? Let's find out. Welcome back, guys. So today we're gonna throw the iPhone XS Max against the DJI Osmo Pocket. Really what I wanna answer is, with cameras that are so good today in cell phones, the software at work, does the Osmo really have a place, or can it be beat by things we have in our pocket every day? We're gonna throw these two against each other in a number of tests here. I'll show them to you on the screen, and we'll see how in the real world they perform. None of the video has been edited afterwards, so it's coming straight out of the camera on both of these devices to you. All right, so we've compared the iPhone to the Pixel. We've compared the DJI Osmo to a professional camera. We compared the Pixel to the Sony RX. I figured it was about time we mixed things up. So today we're comparing the iPhone XS Max to the DJI Osmo Pocket. We're gonna do some exposure tests, some HDR tests, stabilization. We'll do some overall picture quality, as well as slow-mo. We're gonna do some 1080p 120. I also wanna try out 4K 60 since both of these devices are capable of that. And with that, let's go ahead and dive in and take a look. All right, so we started off with a fun one, the B-roll battle. So really what we wanted to answer is, how do these compare in a high frame rate scenario? We're doing 120 frames per second at 1080p. Overall, I felt like the iPhone had the edge up. You'll notice it's definitely gonna crop a lot on the Osmo, which does have advantages in some things you may be shooting if you're shooting wildlife or animals. But in this one, it really just kind of cropped the frame in an uncomfortable way on the street. Also, I thought clarity was much better and last focus. The Osmo lost its focus a bunch throughout that scene, so we've got to knock it down for that. So I'm gonna give the B-roll battle to the iPhone. All right, so this is the HDR test. We've got the lifeguard stand here in the shadows. How much of the details can we actually see on it? The sun is right behind it here. So it should be really hard to expose unless we got a lot of HDR magic working here. How do they stack up? So in the HDR comparison, they both perform pretty well. I didn't think there was necessarily a clear enough winner, so I'm gonna go ahead and give this one a tie. Hope you enjoyed that music. So let's go ahead and do a quick stabilization test here. I've got the iPhone kind of in a little bit of a tripod. It's not stabilizing it by any means, but it is easier to hold. Obviously the Osmo's got its built-in gimbal. Let's see how that stacks up. And we're ready. Running sideways. All right. So how do those hold up against one another? We were kind of running straight on and then running sideways to see how they compare. All right, after watching stabilization, it's pretty clear the Osmo's gonna win with that. I think we might need a test here with the Pixel 3 up against the iPhone XS Max. We did a very brief stabilization test in the past, but now comparing the two with recent updates, I think the Pixel might be taking the lead there. So that'll be a fun one in the future we can look forward to. However, overall, the iPhone was really good in any walking scenarios, a lot of real world scenarios. This is gonna have perfect stabilization, but if you're running, it's a little more shaky. We can definitely see the Osmo has the clear advantage. All right, so right now we're recording at 4K 60, see how they compare. I'm gonna try to slow this down in post, see what it looks like. Lots of detail included in here with all the sand. All All right, so that was a comparison again of the 1080 120p, but I wanted to show you it with some other examples where the crop factor actually helped. Shots were a little bit frame better on the Osmo. However, the iPhone was a tad bit clearer. Overall, I'd give these two a tie. However, when we look at the 4K 60, I've got to say the iPhone was the clear winner. It definitely had a lot more clarity in each of the frames we saw. All right, so we're doing a quick exposure test here. What we're doing is starting off with the sun to my right. I'm gonna go ahead and rotate around. At this point, I've seen a few things. We've seen the Osmo tend to lose focus in examples like this, especially when you're moving, and the iPhone actually tends to blow out some colors sometimes when we see this as well. The subject's face is really exposed, has a lot of light on it. Let's also then go ahead and turn around. This is gonna be similar to our HDR test. Can it keep my face exposed, or is it gonna make my face really dark, exposed for the background, or is it gonna expose for my face and make the background very bright? So just kind of spinning around here. Different lighting scenarios here. Are we losing focus? How's the overall picture look? How do we feel about exposure and HDR on both of these guys? The iPhone does a great job here in the exposure test. However, we saw that it does oversaturate a little bit. The Osmo did a great job with just overall color accuracy, but it was a little bit less flattering out of camera. However, overall, I think the iPhone had better range, but the Osmo was a little bit more accurate. So I'm gonna give these a tie. They both did good respective jobs. It's really just gonna come down to preference in your specific scene, which one's gonna win in any given scenario. All right, so what I want to do right now for you guys is an audio test. I'm standing about 2 feet away from the cameras. We're just going to continue to back up here and kind of see how the audio continues to sound on both of these. Can I pick up my voice from a distance? At what point do we really need to consider getting a lav mic? How's it doing on tracking me and focus? Let's run backwards. Running forwards. Is it keeping my face in focus? How's the audio sound? Kind of get off to the sides here a little bit, see how the audio continues to sound from angles. We're gonna back up, and a zigzag coming back in. Is it keeping focus on my face? All right, that was the tracking and audio test. The iPhone just has much better audio. It's clear throughout the entire video. You can hear us switching back and forth. The Osmo audio just is not that great. You would have the ability to put a modular recorder on here, but you could do the same thing with your iPhone as well. So out of body, I'm gonna give iPhone the win on audio quality, as well as tracking. I think they both did a good enough job. The only noticeable thing was the Osmo sometimes caught or lost focus a little bit, and it was more noticeable than on the iPhone. Overall, the iPhone's gonna win the tracking and audio test. So what we're gonna do now is compare the time lapse between these two cameras. Neither of them natively support hyperlapse, but I think we're gonna go ahead and try that out. You do get motion lapse over on the Osmo because it's gonna move the gimbal around and you can actually set up 2 touch points. What I wanna do is actually take a walk and we'll see how the time lapses hold up on these two cameras while we're also walking. The time-lapse really surprised me. One of the main reasons I have the Osmo here is for its motion lapse feature, because you can set 2 points on the screen, quickly record a very beautiful motion lapse. However, when you're time compressed, the iPhone not only smoothed out the entire time lapse, but just did a great job. If I want to speed this up later, I can. However, you can't really slow down a time lapse. So I actually feel like the iPhone's a big winner here when it comes to time lapse specifically, and especially in this scenario where we're doing a hyperlapse and we actually have motion involved as well. Overall, they both had their respective wins and losses. They also tied a lot. However, I think ultimately what this answers is seeing that the Osmo only won in stabilization. It either tied or lost in all other examples. For me, I'm really starting to question if I'm going to carry the Osmo around as much as I did. I love it for motion lapses, but that's really the only use case anymore that I think I'm going to use this for. If my phone's going to give me better picture quality and much better audio, that's what I'm going to use in any scenario I'm recording video. So that's it, guys. Thanks for joining me today. As always, let me know in the comments, do you agree with how I rank these against one another? Are you still going to carry the Osmo around if you have one? If you don't have one, do you think you'll get one still? So thumbs up if you liked the video. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. As always, it's a pleasure having you. See ya.